Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. First of all, I would like to welcome the young trailblazers, Mr. Speaker, who have come to this House from Kisii, and many of them happen to be university students who have for a long time been struggling with their lives, trying to find out what to do with their lives. I'm happy and I congratulate them for coming here. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, I would like to welcome the students who have come with their teachers to come and see what is in this Senate. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, that today they are actually coming when we are normal. I think if they had come here some 2-3 days ago, they would have thought that this House or Parliament, for that matter, is a place where we are constantly having adversarial relationships and where we make noise at each other. No. Mr. Speaker, I would like to contribute to this motion for the simple reason that, like everybody else has said, the motion, the debate on the environment is a very current debate. And the reason for that, Mr. Speaker, is that if you look at what has been happening, and many of my colleagues have discussed it, many of my colleagues have raised the issue that for the last, most probably 1 month, it's been very hot, abnormally hot. You find that the rains which we had expected to have started last month, everybody is actually relieved that it is raining in Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, I happen to come from Kisii. Normally in Kisii, the rains start around January, February, March, and it is only last week that the rain started falling, and it was exciting. The truth is, Mr. Speaker, even when we have challenges about what our environment has become, I think to a large extent, Mr. Speaker, we also need now to start looking at the options available. What is the government policy? And I was hoping that my friend and brother, Cherargei, and the leader of majority would have been here. Mr. Speaker, as you know, most of the forest cover is within our county governments. All the way from Kwale, Kilifi, if you come all the way up to Taita Taveta, you go down to the Rift Valley, Nakuru County, you go down to Kisii, you go to Trans Nzoia, which is in Kitale, and you look at the whole of Nyanza, all the 4 counties of Nyanza, you'll realize that yes, in Nyanza, our forest cover has been quite high. But again, Mr. Speaker, the problem like we have in Kisii, the forest cover is actually high and it's reasonably good. If you arrive in Kisii, you'll be shocked. The whole place looks green. The only problem, Mr. Speaker, is that we have planted the wrong trees. We have planted the blue gum. And the reason why the blue gum has been planted, and many technocrats, many people educated on environmental issues have been discussing, saying, remove these trees so that you can plant the ones that don't consume a lot of water, because the blue gum is a problem. And in fact, several leaders have tried to do that, and they started approaching the solving of this problem from the wrong end. The blue gum in Kisii is an economic activity. It is not seen as a forest maintenance or forest sustenance activity. Why? Because people plant trees. The trees take about 5 years to grow. By that time, somebody has got about 60 trees. Every tree is sold for 10,000 shillings, and in 10 years, somebody has got 600,000. And that is why when you tell them Kisii to actually cut down the blue gums and plant eucalyptus, they tell you to go to hell. So number one, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the team that has been appointed or selected and is been going to be approved, I hope they will come up with solutions that are going to be locally based, that are going to be effective, and that are going to have the community understand that even when the forest provides, or when trees provide a source of income, Mr. Speaker, it is also important for the public to be given an alternative as to what they can plant other than the trees which they believe they're making some revenue out of it. Mr. Speaker, I see the Senator of Nakuru here. I was growing up when, if you travel down to Naivasha, and you start when you have entered into Naivasha from Kinungi, and you are going all the way down, and you go through past the Delamere area, and in fact get up to Gilgil. One man who nobody would most probably remember planted trees in that place. If you look at Naivasha as you're going down, Madam Senator, on the left and the right, there are some trees which have been growing there, and I don't know whether Kenyans know. That man was called Kariuki Chotara. When he planted those trees, everybody was laughing and saying, this man has most probably gone crazy. How did he decide that they are going to plant the trees there? But Kariuki Chotara, again, out of the very many things that President Moi did that were good, one of the things that he was given credit for is that Moi was actually an environmentalist, and is the one who encouraged Kariuki Chotara, Paul Ngei, and all the older generation politicians to plant trees in their areas. And these are examples that we as leadership can emulate. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, my honest observation is that in Kenya, we have not done an audit, a proper audit, to know which trees we need to plant in certain areas, to know even some of the trees, how long do they take to grow, to figure out what we are going to do. The reason, Mr. Speaker, is very simple. Our spatial plans, which we are supposed to have in every area, whether it's every county, whether it's every sub-county, they are not available. And therefore, even when you are looking at the policies on how we are going to improve the standards of our environmental development and our environmental growth and management, we must look at the policy issues so that we can approach our issues on global warming and environmental development with a comprehensive approach. And this approach, Mr. Speaker, is to make sure that you look at everything, you take the region, you agree that this is what you are going to do. And in certain areas where it is very dry, like Eastern Kenya, Northeastern Kenya, and some of the eastern areas, Mr. Speaker, using River Tana, using all our rivers that we have, I don't understand why we never plant trees and use irrigation. We only talk about growing maize for irrigation. And yet, Mr. Speaker, in some areas, and I've been seeing, if you look on TV, you'll see this company that provides the drilling of water boreholes and everything. You'll see that in some of the areas in Laikipia, in some of the areas in Kajiado, they are actually encouraging farmers to now grow trees, because the trees act like wind covers. Because sometimes when the winds are flowing, the wind comes up and blows off all the sand and the soils. I would like to encourage the team that is coming so that they can engage this house. The Senate is a house that takes care of the counties. The Senate has interest of the counties at heart. Can we have a blueprint which can interface with the National Assembly so that we can then come up with a strategy on how we can encourage our county governments, how we can facilitate them, how we can give them funding, because we participate in that exercise, so that the national government doesn't come from Nairobi, where the president will come and he plants maybe 20 trees or 30 trees for one event which is taking place, and after he leaves, nothing happens. And Mr. Speaker, I think one other thing that we need to do is that if you ask me today, who is the forest officer in Kisii County? I don't even know. The forest office doesn't have the profile. Nobody has exposed them to us. I don't even think that the governor of Kisii or even the members of the county assembly know who the forest officer is. And these are things that we now need to wake up and begin to come up with interventions so that we make sure that we can change the direction our country is taking, so that we increase the forest cover like we've been advised to do. Another issue, Mr. Speaker, look at UNEP. We have a world organization stationed in Nairobi, United Nations Environmental Program. I don't think in the last 3 years I have seen any relationship or any engagement between the national government, county governments, and the officials of the UNEP as to how they can help us. Everything is usually superficial, where maybe the president, if he goes to UNEP when there's a big conference, he'll go there once and that's it. And yet this is the international environmental program agency. and we hardly have any contact with them. I believe that this team that has been given this responsibility will come up and engage and make sure that we change the direction that we've been managing our forests. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say that our universities, I know there's been an issue where everybody's talking about, oh, now we need subjects where university students are going to be, they just need, now all university students need skills, and the skills are to do A, B, C, D, and organize. I just think our government needs to encourage university students to get into environmental studies, which is a study that has always been despised and disregarded. I think the government, for example, needs to encourage students to be given bursaries and to be given scholarships, so that many of our bright young men and women can actually engage in environmental studies to make sure that we now push our country in a direction where we are responsible, where we make sure we know how to deal with our rivers, where we don't politicize everything. Mr. Speaker, you notice a wonderful idea about the Mau Forest, where everybody has said, let us keep our water towers. But every time we discuss and agree on what we are going to do with our water towers, immediately the politics comes, then you have the clan issues coming in, then you have the tribal issues coming in, then you have people from the Rift Valley beginning to scream at each other about why we are not going to the Mau Forest to grow maize, so that we are to grow crops or to grow all sorts of things, so that we can make quick money out of it. And in fact, those forests are unnecessary or the equivalent. I think now people are beginning to realize that we must begin to look at our environment seriously. We must look at how we manage our water seriously. We must begin to look at how we manage our lakes. We must begin how to look at the blue economy. How are we managing all these items, or I mean all these sectors which contribute directly into the management of the economy, or I mean of our economy, but at the same time the environment which is making us survive as individuals. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on a conclusion, I would like to say that it's always a pleasure to remember that we had people like had people like Wangari Maathai, one of the people in this country who is highly regarded and internationally, and you can see what she did, Mr. Speaker. How I wish that many of our young people, many of our students, many of our children, grandchildren could take it upon themselves that they actually know that if we do not make sure that we maintain our environment and make sure we get the right forest cover, make sure we protect our rivers, make sure we take care of generally of our own sustainability, even the air. Mr. Speaker, you notice Nairobi is reasonably not polluted, but at the rate at which we are bringing in cars, Nairobi now, I mean, Kenya receives about 30,000 cars every year. In the next 10 years, you'll be having 3 million cars on the highways. What are we going to do with the pollution? How are we going to manage our pollution? Why are we not encouraging more electrical cars to be used in Kenya? Why are we continuing to use fossil fuels? We are now using petrol and diesel as if nothing is happening. I think these are issues that the Senate and all of us in this House can sit and continue to interrogate, so